Luxury car depreciation can be devastating if you're one of those buyers that likes to buy your car new. Sure, it gives you warranty, it gives you peace of mind for breakdowns and maintenance, but unfortunately it costs you a lot of money for that convenience. If you're like me, where I like to buy my cars 2, 3, 4 years of age, you get the maximum value from your luxury car. You're able to pick up a phenomenal car for 2/3, a half, even less of its original value. I'm going to share with you the worst depreciating luxury cars, but possibly the best buys from a used car's perspective. Let's get into it now. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Mark with Exotic Car Place. What we have here is the Mercedes E-Class. This one here is notorious for depreciation. Even though it's got that beautiful grille, the three-pointed star, an aggressive spoiler, all of the luxury amenities you could possibly ask for, including a large sunroof, beautiful wheels, great exhaust tips by Mercedes again. And this one here is a 4MATIC because it's all-wheel drive, turning on the snow and ice at all times. It's an E350, so this one here is the V6. The E-Class truly is one of the nicest variations of the Mercedes-Benz lineup. Unfortunately, it does hurt on depreciation, largely because it has so many features. It has a lot of technology and in some cases some very powerful engines. And a lot of people who are thrifty looking for a used car won't necessarily be looking for a used Mercedes. The S-Class is equally bad, but unfortunately the only heads that you'll be turning when you're driving a used Mercedes when you're trying to sell it are people spinning their heads to leave the parking lot. Yes, that's right. These cars lose 69% of their original value within 5 years, makes them almost a dead giveaway. However, if you can wrench a little bit yourself, or you have a great mechanic that knows how to work on these represent a massive deal, because on their own right, a Mercedes is still one of the very best luxury brands out there. So the next one on my list is the Infiniti QX60 right here. While these are great vehicles, very nicely styled, unfortunately they lose 65% of their value in the first 5 years. Partially because of quality issues and partially just because the reputation and the struggles that Nissan and Infiniti have had lately definitely doesn't help matters. But these can represent an awesome value. I mean, just look around here. Infiniti lately has really been a style icon in the Japanese world. I mean, if you look at this, they've got some cool styling accents here. Typical, again, like most vehicles, LED headlights, alloy wheels, take them or leave them, maybe not the sharpest. And then you've got the 3.5 liter, which is sort of their staple V6 engine. And we circle around. You've got cool marker lights there. And we have the oversized glass on top. But then circle around, look at the styling components. Even this definitely, it looks fast even not moving. You've got the capability to tow, so that's always a win. Here we are, the QX60, and overall it's a very, very attractive vehicle, so there's represents phenomenal value, because to get this much SUV for $20,000 after only 5 years of use, that's phenomenal value. So if you're looking at getting into something on the used car market, this is a great place to start and stop if you're looking for something in the Japanese market, but maybe we're tired of looking at the Acura and Lexus side of things. The next car on the list is the Audi right here, the A4. A4 is a tough one, the A6 is another one, and these ones suffer serious depreciation. I mean, they're very stylish when they're new, and these cars cost about $46,000 US when they're new, and unfortunately after 5 years you would expect these only to hold up to about $28,000, $29,000 on the used car market. Similar trends tend to apply to the A6 as well as many of the other models within the Audi brand. I mean, sure, they have some beautiful styling. I mean, this is where the value comes in. Wonderful exhaust tips, LED taillights, soft touch handles, LED markers on the mirrors, great alloy wheels, and quite honestly, just a beautiful package all the way together. Audi also has some of the best interiors in the business, hands down, bar none. Unfortunately, it's the earlier versions of the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder that you find in the earlier A4s that really did crush its reliability records. Sadly, it takes a while to shed that reputation, and as a result, these do suffer. People don't want to get tied into them as they get older because of the fear of expensive repairs. And when you combine the depreciation across the board from the SUVs and the A4s and the A6s, sadly, the average Audi loses about 66% of its original value within the first 5 years. But there is a positive to all of this. Take a look right here. You can actually get yourself an RS5, something like this, after it's 4 or 5 years of age for a relatively cheap price. I mean, look at this beautiful thing. Marvelous LED taillights, RS5, seriously beefy exhaust tips, tough looking little spoiler. You get the wonderful panoramic glass on the roof. RS5 again, massive cross-drilled rotors, and a wonderful LED headlights combined with the massive aggressive spoiler. So what do we have here? A Lincoln SUV right here. As we circle around, how can you think this is a bad buy? Well, it is brand new, but on a used car market, it's great, and here's why. It's a pretty stylish looking SUV. As a matter of fact, it really has a feel of Audi. It definitely feels like a Q5, almost. Now, you circle around, of course, it's got the trademark Lincoln front grille, which is very spot on. Look down here, it's got nice little accent pieces there. LED headlights, we circle around. Smaller sunroof, but it works. And then you move around, you've got the little touches here on the door handles, alloy wheels. And we back up, and I would say the rear end actually looks even more polished, looks very striking. Looking down here, you've got the dual exhaust, and you also have a tow hitch for capability if you need to tow a small boat or a trailer. And as well, get some of these great styling components just like this. The rear end of this car is actually quite bold and very attractive. Here, same story, you have that sleek overrun there from the roofline and the smaller windshield, which just gives it that very sporting appeal. Now, how about the interior? Also not bad for a Ford-based product. So what's the problem here? Well, these vehicles brand new were about $38,000 US to start with. Guess what? Look all over the trader. Just flipping through the Auto Trader, you can find lots of different prices. When you go back for 5 years, you can find lots of these for under $15,000 US. That's right. In other words, these lose 62% by the time you negotiate a price. Close to 62% of their original value gone, up in smoke once you own this thing for 5 years. But that can represent a great value. Find one that's been well maintained, find one with reasonable miles, and you've just saved yourself $20,000. The Lincoln MKC. Close to this beautiful unit right behind me here. It's an Italian car. It's Maserati, and this one's called the Ghibli. Now, unfortunately, these cars, brand new, were about $80,000, $90,000. Now you can have them for about $25,000 to $27,000 US. That means they face an unruly 69% loss in the first 5 years. So why do they suffer so bad for depreciation? It's certainly not their beautiful looks, because if it were based on looks alone, they'd hit it out of the park and they'd retain 100% of their value. How about the big brakes? How about the delicious interior on these cars? Or the prestigious brand? Or the exceptionally beautiful tail end of these cars? And the curvaceousness of this Italian hot rod? Or even the soft touch controls? Or the overall profile of this car? Does that hurt depreciation? No, those are all great elements. They don't hurt depreciation at all. So they certainly are exclusive enough, but really it's the expensive parts, expensive labor, combined with the fact that Italian made means cha-ching. And the breakdowns and unreliability and the general reputation unfortunately precedes it. But get around all that, you can get yourself an absolutely beautiful Ferrari-inspired Italian sports car right here in the Maserati for a little bit more than a song and a dance, and that's a good thing for you and for me. Do your research, find out which years are good, which years are not so good. Personally, I do believe with a $60,000 saving in a 5-year time span, it leaves a lot of money in your pocket for potential repairs and maintenance. So this is such a massive buy that it's actually hard to ignore. The Maserati Ghibli. So the next vehicle that depreciates like a tank is the Volvo XC60, and it loses actually up to 67% of its original value. That's right, their sedans take a hit, their SUVs also take a hit. Even though they're priced relatively affordably, when they're new, they continue to drop off. For example, a vehicle like this cost about $50,000 US brand new, and now, sadly, a stylish vehicle like this is only worth about $15,000 to $16,000 US, even with great touches like those great accents on the taillights, nicest and most integrated exhaust tips, just enough flair there to keep things interesting. Again, soft touch entry, a slightly awkward fueling station, beautiful rims, and as every other luxury SUV nowadays, has LED headlights as well. Let's also not forget large glass panel on the roof, which gives the driver and the passenger lots of light inside. And the interior is absolutely delicious. It's very, very up to date and of high quality materials. You'll notice the heated and cooled seats, for example. So Volvo, always known as that ultra safe, ultra dependable Swedish car company, they make cars that are affordable and for the people, but sadly they continue to decline. However, that can actually work in your favor. Look what a great vehicle you have right here. You can get one of those for barely a song and a dance, And I do believe these are some of the more underrated SUVs on the market today. The Volvo XC60 in this case. And the next worst depreciating luxury car on the used car market after 5 years is this car right here. It's a BMW 7 Series, and I'll explain why that is. It's not because they're ugly, because they're actually a very handsome car. I mean, they've got some great styling accents. You've got LED headlights, their traditional grille, impressive alloy wheels, accents throughout, soft touch door handles, great exhaust tip finishing at the back, and a wonderful interior that's decked with all of the luxury amenities. Heated, cooled seats, heads-up display, cool chrome accents, and the luxury appointments go on and on and on. This happens to be an all-wheel drive, so it's the X-Drive version as well. And this car retailed for about $94,000 US when it was new back in 2015. Now, 5 years later, we're talking about a car that's worth, if you look on the tag, $35,000 Canadian. When this car cost over 120 grand when it was brand new in terms of Canadian dollars. Why do these cars suffer such heavy depreciation? Well, mainly because of the high level of performance and technology. And a lot of used cars buyers are a little bit more practical and don't need all of the gadgets. Unless they're a true enthusiast and they're looking for the M cars. But these high-end premium versions, the 7 Series, often many of the 5 Series cars, they suffer a serious depreciation. As a matter of fact, this car here suffers it to the tune of 73% of its original value is lost in the first 5 years. That's right, 25% is retained, but this can represent a phenomenal deal for folks out there like you and me if, for example, you're prepared and budgeted for some additional repairs along the way, or if you can fix some of it yourself. You can get yourself a phenomenal vehicle for absolutely dirt cheap. But sadly, some of the problems carry through to all of the BMWs. Even the 3 Series like this do suffer a serious depreciation. As a matter of fact, a car like this loses about 60 to 65% of its original value within that first 5 years. So it really is a brand thing. Really, ultimately, as you move up the range to the higher, more complex vehicles like the X7s, X5s, certainly 7 Series BMWs, 5 Series, you're going to see a much sharper depreciation curve, and it can represent a phenomenal deal. Let's also not forget some of the coolant leak issues you get in the straight 6s, the oil leaks in the V8s, and the 4 cylinders. They have issues with timing chains in some of the models. So there are definitely maintenance related issues associated with BMW, and people get scared about it, and that forces prices down on the used car market. So the next car on our list are the Buick products. Right here we have the Buick Encore. Cute little car for sure, great runabout. And actually, they start around $30,000 US, so they're pretty good value. And then over here, we have the Buick Enclave. Over here, all-wheel drive. This is more of their mid-size SUV. As you can see, it resembles a lot of the other GM products. Why? Because it largely is based on a lot of the other GM products. Now, sure, they've got some great touches, some great alloy wheels here. They've also got the soft touch controls on the handles, marker lights there, and some cool accents there too. We circle around, we look at these exhaust tips. They're more of a welded on little tip here as well, instead of an integrated piece that you see in a lot of the European cars. Again, Buick, known more for their floaty, kind of floaty boaty effect. And that's why they've always struggled, because enthusiasts aren't generally looking for these vehicles. They represent a great buy for a lot of people just looking for a moderate SUV without spending a whole arm and 3 legs. But because the Enclave or the Encore are both just a fair, easy to live with SUV and doesn't strike that aggressive balance for enthusiasts, these lose 62% of their original value within 5 years. That's right, you can expect it on both the Enclave or the Encore. So it represents a great buy if you just need a great little runabout, maybe to buy for your wife or your kids. These are great options because they can be had for so cheap. So the next vehicle on our list right here is anything from Land Rover. What we have here is a Range Rover Sport, supercharged 5-liter V8, absolute monstrosity, great vehicle for hitting the streets or off-roading. These things are wonderful, absolutely handsome, attractive, as luxurious as you're possibly going to find on anything on 4 wheels. And truly the reputation for off-roading prowess exists with the Range Rover brand, or Land Rover specifically. I mean, just look at the LED lights, beautiful finishing there, massive oversized rims and brakes, cool accents, LED marker lights, absolutely stunning interior in these cars as well. And a real stage presence exists with any of these Range Rovers, particularly the Sport that we have parked right here. Now you'll notice we've got the dual exhaust tips here. slightly fake, however, there they are. And this is the Sport HST version. Beautiful vehicle, very expensive. But these vehicles have problems with window regulators, they have problems with the air suspension dropping, they have problems with the front end. There's all kinds of looseness that happens in the front end of these things. There is a lot of weight for them to move around. General reliability isn't necessarily the best you've ever seen. Is it in line with a Lexus? And sadly, for a new price of $95,000 on these Range Rover Sports, they actually lose up to 63% of their original value in the first 5 years, making them an absolutely crummy purchase new. However, you definitely may want to check one of these out on the slightly used market. Check out a 2 or 3 year old vehicle with a CPO warranty and you'll smash it out of the park. And with all of that said, I'm sure you probably want to understand in more depth why BMWs depreciate as much as they do. Check out that video, it's going to explain the whole situation. Hope to see you real soon. Catch you then. Bye-bye.